Welcome to the bold analysis, ladies and gentlemen. Whoever dispatched John Mbadi from one media house to another to defend what he neither understands nor controls. I'm speaking about the shadowy sale of 15% of government shares in Safaricom to Vodafone without proper disclosure or public participation is doing more harm than good. The government of Kenya plans to sell its 15% stake in Safaricom to South Africa's Vodacom, and in real sense, looking at the discourse, listening to financial and economic experts, the cabinet secretary, the clashing of ideas and outright explanations, this might not survive the judicial scrutiny. And as Kalonzo Musyoka heads to court, this charade is really coming out as the biggest heist in 2025. Mbadi, Nyoro, and a clique of financial experts who are putting their mind in this deal are telling and warning the country that we run the risk of losing the value for our money. And that is why it is coming, and it is coming clearly, that government might be forced to make a U-turn at the initial stages of this deal. And in this podcast, I have done my research. I have collected the pieces together. And by the end of this podcast, you will understand why what is clothed and dressed as special and a creative way of funding our infrastructure projects might not really achieve the said objective. If you're watching this podcast, and I know most of us are interested in this deal, kindly subscribe. And subscribe because here we do in-depth analysis, and I've crafted this together just for you. Subscribe, and I believe that we get it. There are 5 pertinent questions. I've tried to frame it with those pertinent questions because that explains better the grounds that different stakeholders are raising on this matter. The first concern, ground number 1, is a very simple question. Are we getting value for our money? Ndindi Nyoro says that the Safaricom shares are being auctioned off like scrap metals. The buyer is not keen on the details and on the value. Says this is not what it is supposed to achieve, and such a precious asset should not be vandalized, dressed as creativity.
I want to enforce that the government is selling Safaricom stake, 15%. I want to repeat again and again that the government slept in negotiating a better deal with the buyers of Safaricom stake. And I'm saying that with confidence. And I say so because I have been in the stock market in Kenya for a long time, myself, because I also invest in the stock market. If you look at how the companies in that sector are valued, I just want to say as a Kenyan, the government of Kenya is trying to sell Safaricom for a song. And because there is a period for that, for public participation, as it was said in Parliament yesterday, we are going to put our voice because we want Kenya to get the best value out of selling our most prized asset called Safaricom.
When you listen to Ndindi Nyoro, he's saying things and he's ready to face the scrutiny. Something keenly when you listen around since this Safaricom deal happened, the entire communication machinery around the president avoids this discussion like a plague. The president's economic advisors, Ndindi Nyoro, these are the people that should be in media trying to break it down, to win the public discourse. They are nowhere. When you look at the parliamentary leadership, Ndindi Nyoro is raising pertinent issues. Even the leadership in parliament, even the budget chair, Sama Tandi, Ndindi Nyoro's successor, I'm yet to hear them talking about it. And the government is quiet, while selectively the president picks what the masses needs to be told. The MPs are quiet, but their silence is loud. The Senate looks like a graveyard, and the parliament is a museum of compliant bodies. They cannot question. And understand, I listened to Odhiambo Mogi. He's a financial expert, and in this video, he breaks down the Safaricom haste, clearly putting it, this is a road deal.
Do is you take the revenue of that company, you multiply by 10, yeah. And the discounted cash flow would be somewhere between 80 to 100% of your multiple. So the revenue for Safaricom as at 2025 was 388 billion. Mm-hmm. Now, if you multiply by 10, that brings you 3.88 trillion as the possible value of Safaricom. Now, you see that there's a big disparity between the book value, which is 1.1, and the DCF value, which is 3.88. And so when you are going into these negotiations, what you do is you can agree to add the two and divide by 2. In which case, you add 1.1 plus 3.88, you get a real value of 2.5 trillion, mm-hmm. which is around what Ndindi Nyoro was implying. 15% of 2.5 trillion is definitely not 204 billion. Mm-hmm. It is upwards of 350 billion. Now, but Safaricom is a gem. It's our pride. So you cannot sell it at a discount. You cannot sell it at value. You must get a premium. Mm-hmm. If you got a 10% premium on it at 2.5 trillion valuation, then that would be north of, say, even 400 billion. Mm-hmm. What I am now arriving at, which is 400 billion as the potential value of this deal, is twice the amount that the Cabinet Secretary for Finance is telling us that he's selling Safaricom for. So on that one, Ndindi is right that we are selling Safaricom for a song. And of course, anybody can actually do that calculation and arrive at that figure. At least the guys, the economists who are not at the Ministry of Finance or Treasury, for that matter. So, in comment really to the conversation that the good Waziri started, I think we need to engage further and ask ourselves why he's selling Safaricom at least 50% of the potential value that we could get out of it.
And just as that, it is indeed true that this deal could be a road deal. The second concern is this: strategic control versus quick cash. According, and this is the concern. When you look at, and I want to use it, I want to explain it using these two charts here, this illustration here, you will understand really what Kenya is losing in the equation. And I want us to have a look at this here. The deal, sale of 15% government stake, approximately 6 billion shares, bought by Vodacom Group from South Africa, priced at 244 billion. The consequence is state ownership drops 20% to 20%. Vodacom's stake rises to 55%, granting it the majority control. So this is the concern in this. From the average Kenyan, from the masses, this is not just a boardroom tussle. There is a question of economic sovereignty, and this is it. Safaricom is not just a merely telecom operator. Safaricom is our everyday life in business, in financial flow, and other aspects. It's at the heartbeat of SMEs in this country. Now, critics argue that ceding majority control, 55% to the Johannesburg-based entity, could shift its priorities, strategic priorities, away from the local needs. The government argues the sale, however, is necessary. Where do you think government went to buy shares in Safaricom? It is also for national security asset. Our election, look at our election. The transfer, look at transmission of results. Look at the network provision in the country. Look at the financial flow. And this is what it's saying. But Mbadi presents a picture that debt payments is consuming 40% of our revenue. The 244 billion is earmarked to be injected in the National Infrastructure Fund, NIF, and the Sovereign Wealth Fund, Mbadi maintaining that the country is safe. But this brings us to the third concern, which is the model of privatization, the value of that privatization to put it in the infrastructure fund. Is it really working? The president, during the State of the Nation address, told the country about an ambitious 15-year plan to create two funds, the National Infrastructure Fund and the Sovereign Wealth Fund. Now, the idea behind the privatization, initial idea was that we were going to sell and be disposed of government parastatals and entities that are underperforming because they are gobbling taxpayers' money. That was why, that was the idea of privatization. Now, posturing as creativity, and the president says inataka ujanja, inafaa kuwa ukue mtu mwerevu. The president is selling them and apparently saying that we are selling to build a tolled road. Odhiambo asks the value, and it's to listen to selling the Safaricom shares to build a road that we are going to toll. Are we going to make the perceived profit there?
As an economist, I'm asking myself, do we really need to sell Safaricom so that we can put that money in an infrastructure fund? Mm-hmm. And the answer, the more I think about it, the more I say no. And this is the reason. Safaricom gave the government of Kenya 16 billion worth of dividends this year alone. Now, the project that we are talking about, Rironi to Mau Summit now, the infrastructure project, that road has 20,000 vehicles passing on it every day. It is around 183 kilometers from Rironi to Mau Summit. The guy who's coming in has proposed 8 shillings per kilometer. Now, roughly, if I am feeling free and sufficiently happy to do mathematics, I would multiply 8 by 20,000 by 183 kilometers and by 365 days in a year, and I'd get roughly 10 billion revenue expected every year out of that road. Mm-hmm. They are putting in 180 billion to construct the road. Assuming this guy makes this 10 billion, and that is there are several assumptions there. One, we are assuming that every vehicle that uses that road is going to pay the toll. Two, we are assuming that every vehicle goes the whole 183 kilometers. And we are assuming that it is 20,000 vehicles every single day. Assuming also that this person has zero costs. This means then that they will need at least 18 years to recoup that investment. Now, if we, however, effected a cost of, say, 33%, because if you're a private investor and you're taking our road and you are charging us for it, then you should be able to maintain it so that we use the road maintenance levy elsewhere. If then we effect 33% cost, that figure goes up to 25 years. Now, in 20 years, if we said the government of Kenya is having 16 billion as dividends every year, in 20 years, that's 320 billion.
Something crosses my mind just as he speaks. I would want to understand something here. Probably I want to throw it to you, and I believe in this podcast we have mature audience, people who also understand the financial architecture in the country and a bit of the economy, and even economists here. We want to hear from you. Mbadi is fashioning, selling. You sell Safaricom shares to put into a fund to build roads and dams to spur economic growth. But as Mbadi speaks, he's talking about diversifying the investment. Listen here. Now, this is my concern. And this is what the economists are arguing, that in Safaricom, we are guaranteed of the returns. Guaranteed. We are going to get it. And it is a game that you're not expecting Safaricom to collapse tomorrow. Are we insecure? Are our shares insecure in Safaricom? No. But as Mbadi talks, building the road, is it an investment? Is government investing to toll it? Or building a road or a dam should be part of utility services to make sure that we spur economic growth? And this is a question that has to be answered. Selling the shares to build the road. I don't know what you think, but I want to leave it open to you. Number 4, the process. Treasury pushes to finalize the transaction to meet its fiscal targets. The call for competitive process places the administration in a bind. And financial experts are asking, they would have gone for competitive bidding instead of direct sale. And Mbadi, according to him, talks about this, that the process there.
We have this stake here. How do you calm the nerves of those that are saying, how do you sell off a company fetching you up to 18 billion shillings per year?
Yeah, first of all, I want to make it very clear that what we are doing is what we call unlocking value for a mature investment. The Safaricom PLC, as an investment for the Republic of Kenya, as it is today, is a mature investment. And that is what you can unlock. You can unlock the value and invest it in other productive ventures. And I will tell you for a fact, Sam, that this probably is the right time to divest, because again, this company is surviving on technology. And digital technology advances and changes. Where we are is the 5G and of course the fiber. The next stage is for fintech and expansion in the region. You need to free and unlock government investment in this company to be able to advance. But again, something else is that I don't know how much time this would take, but I will tell you for a fact that for us to be able to continue doing infrastructure projects in this country, you need to have capital. You need to have resources to do it. And presently, you can do it in two ways. One is taxation, the other one is debt. Now, taxation, putting more or hiking taxes is not an option.
Right.
Going to more debt is not an option. Yet we have huge investment projects that we need to put money in to be able to realize economic growth that would create job opportunities to our country.
Right.
Now, you need to have more creative ways of raising funds, and this is one of them. Now, the other thing that I would also mention, it is not that the government of Kenya will now forgo the 16 or 18 billion. We will still get almost about 10 billion every year if we continue with the current rates of performance or dividend or profitability of Safaricom PLC. What you forgo is probably about 7 billion per year, which if we were to reason that way in straight line, we are receiving 200 billion today. How long will you receive that money at 7 billion shillings? If we were to take that simplistic arithmetic, it's about 30 years. Now, depending on where you invest this money, because I think the fear maybe Kenyans have here is that we are divesting in Safaricom 15%, getting this money and consuming it or putting it in budgetary support. That is not what we intend to do. What we intend to do is to productively use the resources that we are going to raise by divesting 15% in Safaricom and any other privatization, put it in a national infrastructure fund, which then we would use to link the private sector and institutional investors with public investment or public infrastructure. Sam, let me ask you this question. Kenya is growing its economy now, or the economy is growing at 5%. Analysis and studies have shown that for Kenya to create employment opportunities that would match the number of the youth who come out of colleges to join the labor market, we need at least 7% economic growth. How are we going to realize economic growth without further investment in infrastructure projects like roads? Today, our major trading partner is Uganda. To reach Uganda is a nightmare. It is affecting our economy in that respect. The other neighbor is Tanzania, which is our trading partner. How do you reach Tanzania when the road from Nairobi to Namanga is a challenge? We have the issues of food security, and we need to depend now on irrigated agriculture as opposed to rain-fed agriculture, which is proving unreliable. Many people will tell you, and studies have shown, that direct foreign investment in this country cannot be realized easily because of the cost of energy arising out of reliability and cost. Now, we need to put more resources to energy generation, electricity energy generation, and transmission.
So this is my concern with the process. We've done direct sale. That's where we're going Vodacom. Even though I believe that some people, it will also be nice. I don't know whether if it was competitive, wangelose. Ruto has already launched Rironi Mau Summit Road. This is part of the road. Tumeenda kulaunch barabara, ile pesa ya kujenga hiyo barabara, hata hatujasanya. Then, is this process premeditated? Yes. See, we launched Rironi Road just last week. The fund going to support the Rironi Road construction in he. So how did we launch a project before even the fund? Looking at how the project has turned around, the turnaround of the project, there is more questions to it. But a more interesting one is number 5, which is the urgency of the privatization. We must understand, when you listen to Mbadi, he speaks about we've reached the headroom. We don't have fiscal space to borrow more. We can also not overstretch the taxpayers, but we need money to do the giant projects. But and at that, to me, it appears like the world is coming to an end tomorrow. We must do these roads today. It must be today, and it must be today. A question at this point. On health, we have SHA. We are collecting levy from the people. On education, we reduced capitation. Tumereduce ile pesa tunapeleka shule, tuna reduce an education. Okay, what is gobbling our taxes? We're still even borrowing. Even IMF the other day, even when we're still borrowing. There is a persistent question as you go to win the masses, to convince the masses. I think it's also imperative for government to break down. What exactly is eating a lot of money that we collect? Are we paying people salaries? Because even if it comes to counties, we are still struggling to pay them. That question does not have an answer. This is what I can interpret from this deal. 3 things. There is a principal beneficiary of this deal seated somewhere. And this beneficiary is oblivious of the value. The focus is on quick sale, not a process that will give us a better value. But ushaiona ile nataka kuuza ng'ombe haraka haraka. That's how we are selling those shares. Tunataka kuuza haraka haraka. The urgency and the shadowy manner in which it is done can only point to a principal beneficiary in it. Ruto is under some intense pressure to appease the masses. So while the drive is being projected and vision casted exclusively to build roads and dams, but I see a bigger vision to appease the masses, even to make sure this thing can work. And lastly, and this is my punch, politicians should keep off propaganda in this deal. That is why in this podcast, sijacheza clip ya Rigathi, na sijacheza clip ya Ruto. No. So that let's allow the experts to debate, to feed the people, the public, the right information. So experts listen to the experts and listen to what the state is saying. Then we can sieve the two so that just like other projects we've done, we should work with the people. Safaricom is a public asset. Let us do it the right manner. Remember, no one is against the sale, but there are questions about process. There are questions about the value. There are questions about the urgency. There are questions about how we are doing it. I want to read your feedback on this. Thank you.